Hello YouTube, it's Ashlar here with the first in a series of tutorials on random numbers in Java. This is going to be part of a mini series on random numbers and a larger series on beginning Java programming. So this will be all relatively beginner basic stuff that hopefully you'll be able to follow along with. And I'm also going to start very simply and build step by step as we go. And I'll probably divide this into at least 2, maybe 3 tutorials of varying complexity. So to get started here, I've created a class that I named random numbers. This name right here can be anything that you want. It does not have to be named random numbers. You could call it number generator. You could call it potatoes. It doesn't really matter. This is not anything built in. It's just a name that I chose. And outside of our main method, and actually above the class, we need to import random from java.util before we can do anything with random numbers. So we're going to start up here, import java.util.random. That's taken care of. Now we have everything we need for the purposes of this tutorial. And if you like, you can follow and code along with me, or you can just watch and try it on your own later. Keep in mind that one of the best ways to learn is not only to copy what I do, but then afterwards go back and change things around or try to write your own code that references things in the way you might use them. So to start off, we need to actually create a random number generator. And the way that's done is we need to first type random, which is the class random, and then name it something. So this next word can be anything that you want. I'm just going to call it numbers, since that's pretty clear. But again, just like random numbers above, you can actually name this anything you want. It's a reference to our object. So random numbers equals, and we're going to type new, and then random with the parentheses there and semicolon. And now you can see that the colors have changed that show there's actually 4 different colors here. Random is the class, numbers is the variable that we declared. This can be anything that you want, and then the new keyword, random constructor. So that's how you have to type it out in order to make a random number generator. This numbers could be anything you want. We're actually going to end up changing it at some point later in the tutorial just to demonstrate that depending on what you're coding, you can change the name of it to be something more meaningful. But for right now, we're just going to be creating random numbers. Okay, now we're going to use a sysout. And the way I do this on Eclipse is I type control and space and then just type the word sysout, S-Y-S-O-U-T, and hit enter. And it automatically creates a system.out.println with the parentheses and the semicolon. If you're not using Eclipse or you'd rather just learn the code from scratch, you can just type that in, system.out.println, and then the parentheses, and you can fill it in that way. For the rest of the tutorial, I'll just be using that sysout shortcut, but I wanted to just let you know that if you're using a program that doesn't autocomplete, you can still type that code and it's valid. Now, inside the parentheses, what we're going to do to just generate a random number is we're going to type numbers, which is what we created above, dot, and then next int. So you're going to see that in this list here. And this, where it says bound in an autocomplete, the bound is basically the range of numbers you wanted to select from. So if you wanted to select from, let's say, 10 different numbers, you would put in the digit 10. You could also make it a larger selection of numbers, like 10,000, or it could be 5. So let's start and just see if I put in 10 and run the code. And I'm going to have to move the window down here. So you can see it generated the number 7. I'm going to click run again, and we get 5. And just click this a few times, and you're going to get all kinds of random numbers that are anywhere between 0 and 9. So notice we put in the number 10, but we're not actually going to get the number 10 because Java starts counting from 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is a total of 10 choices. So if we actually wanted to include the number 10, there's a couple options we have. We could change this to 11, in which case now we're going to get 0 through 10 are going to be the integers that show up when we run the code. So I'll go ahead and click this again, and I'll run it a few times. You see we've got 0. and at some point we should actually get the number. Yeah, there's a 10. We won't get an 11 because 10 is technically the 11th value when you count from 0 to 10. So that is one workaround if you wanted to include the number 10. Another way of doing this, rather than putting the code numbers.nextInt inside the print line, we can delete that there. Let's go ahead and instead create a variable. We'll call it x, int x. And again, this could be, you want to set it as int because we are going to be selecting random integers, but this letter x here could be anything that you want. It's just not numbers. It has to be something new. So we'll just call it x, and we're going to set x equal to, and now we're going to put that same code that was in here as the variable, as the instruction for x, numbers.nextInt. We're going to select that there, and then inside the parentheses you can actually tell it how many you want to select from. So now we've got what we did before, where it's going to be selecting from 0 to 9. And then instead of putting this code in your parentheses here, you would put x. So whatever this instruction returns as the value of x will then be printed out in the console. So we'll run this now, and you can see it's essentially performing the same exact function as before. I'm going to run it a few times, and you'll see it's still printing out that numbers.nextInt, but we've assigned it to x. So now we can actually operate on x and change how that's processed. So this would be the workaround if you did not want to include 0 as one of your choices. So we basically, in this code, we set x to whatever number is generated by this code, and then in the next line we're going to use an incrementer. So we're going to go plus plus x, and that takes whatever x came out as and increases it by 1. So if x happens to be 0, we'll get the number 1. So this would be if you wanted this range here to actually give you numbers 1 through 10 and not include 0. So now you can see before the x gets passed into this print line, it's actually incremented by 1. So you can see here, if I run the code, I'm going to click run, bring it down, we've got 9. I'll run it a few times, and you'll see that eventually we'll get the number 10, and we should not get any zeros. There's a 10. So that means that what x actually was defined as was 9, and then it was incremented 1 before it output to our screen. So to demonstrate this a little more clearly, I'm going to put this here. We're going to copy, or we're going to cut this code out, and we're going to put it after this here. So which means now we're going to get a random number, assign it to x, and we're going to print out what that value is. Then we're going to take the x value and increment it by 1, and then we're going to print that out. So again, we're going to do a sys out, and we're just going to print x again. And you're going to see what we should get if this was done correctly is that we're going to get a number here between 0 and 9, and then whatever number that is going to be increased by 1, and the number that's going to be output second is going to be 1 higher than what the original value of x was. So I'm going to click run, and I'm going to show you down the console. So see, you get two numbers. You get 2, which is what x was actually, what the random number generated was actually 2, but then we're changing it by 1 to output the number 3. And I can keep running this, and you're always going to get 2 sequential numbers just like that. So this would be a way that you could prevent the output from showing the number 0 and actually have a choice between, if you wanted to say pick a number between 1 and 10. And one more thing, since this tutorial has gotten to be almost 10 minutes here, before I go on to the next level of complexity, we can just change this number in here to anything we want. Let's say 15, and now we're going to get numbers between 1 and 15. Let's see if we get something 2 and 3, 0 and 1. Now we got 10 and 11, 13 and 14. But this number can be absolutely, this range could be, I do think there actually is an upper limit. I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is, but let's say you could make it 500, which means that it's going to pick between 0 and 499. So see, we've got 399 and 400. And then when you just want to, let's say, not see, the 2 pieces of code, you can just get rid of this first print X. And now we're going to basically get a random number, assign it to X, increment it by 1, and then print that number out. I'll show you again, and now we got 179. So play around with this code. There's not too much here, and that's why I wanted to just keep this one a little simpler so you get a feel for how the whole thing works. And the next video will be taking the same code that we have, so if you're following along with me, you can go ahead and leave this code on your screen, and we're going to change some things, and I'll show you a few more things that you can do with it in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hopefully like the video. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments section, and I will see you on the next video.